So, so this is because second book also I'll just give in passing. I'll give refer to my second book. It's called Humanitarian Identity, Political Sublime: Intervention of a Post-Colonial Feminist, where I deconstructed. In the first book, I deconstructed Lacan. In the second book, I deconstructed Immanuel Kant's theory of the sublime, and offered the notion of the political sublime. I coined the term, and I coined it by claiming that I'm a post-colonial feminist, intervention of a post-colonial feminist, and Enlightenment theory of the West has a lot to offer, but there is limitation, and it should be qualified and enhanced by the theories and philosophy from the East, from India. So, and then it seemed like, and that book was also written as a response to 9/11, because that shattered my world there. I didn't find America peaceful anymore. But the third book it's beyond 9/11, and I'm thinking of, oh my goodness, I settled here, I decided to live here, but there's still so much agony, so much pain. There's a lot of good things, but at the same time, there's so much struggle. And I was in the book launch of Argumentative Indian, and that's the way I got introduced to Shen's writing. And then I fell in love with his book. I think it's only 50 pages lecture delivered in Oxford, Reason Before Identity. So that's the way gradually I entered into the discourse with his theory. And then when the idea of justice came out, and I read it, oh, this is my book. I mean, this is what I need now. I mean, so it has to do a lot with the way, not just in academic I'm evolving, but in my personal life, the way I am developing or evolving.
In your fifth chapter, which is the first author that you're dealing with, yes, sorry. Which is the first author that you're dealing with, you talk about Sea of Poppies, and you talk about diasporic construct.
Mm-hmm.
So could you explain
Sure.
what you mean here?
Yes. Sea of Poppies, a diasporic construct. So I don't know how many of you familiar, I assume some of you are familiar with the Sea of Poppies, right? Yes? Nodding the head, yeah. The book is written in the context of British colonization in a colonial India. So yes, that's a good question you asked me, why I call it a diasporic construct. Because well, I was looking at the struggle of the Americans, I mean of the Indians in the USA, or the struggle of the immigrant in the USA. I thought I chose this book, Amitabh Ghosh's Sea of Poppies, as well, because I realized that the struggle is still not over. It is set up in the context of British colonization, but some of those struggles we still deal with day-to-day life, not only in the USA, maybe in all over the world. You know, if you think also in the context of what is happening in the last 2 years, you know, in Paris, all over Europe, what is happening, you know, we barely have any peace. So I see, and that's why it's really important, you know, to take the globe into account. So I would say that you could say that you are writing on the theory of capability and diaspora. You have given us the chapter on namesake, which is set up in Boston in the USA, and Toni Morrison's Beloved. It is set up again in the time when there was slavery in the USA. What is the context of that with bringing in Ghosh's Sea of Poppies? There's a lot of intersectional similarity, because we still see the same master-slave dialectic. And I'm not really fond of Spivak, but this her recent work and aesthetic education in the era of globalization, I think is very, who am I to say, very impressive, you know, she's such a great scholar, but that has some intersection with my own theories as well, because she's talking about, I think all of you are also familiar with the notion of the subaltern, right? That she offers us, can the subaltern speak? But the interesting part of that book, Aesthetic Education in the Era of Globalization, specifically the chapter Reimagining the Planet, is that she mentions Shen. And you also mentioned that Shen has not entered into the discourse of post-colonial theory, but in the main, not mainstream, he's an economist and philosopher, but she is mentioning, and I did not know that, I just liked the book, picked up the book, and I saw that she's mentioning also Shen. So, and there's another theorist, American philosopher, my friend at MIT, her name is Sally Haslanger, and in her wonderful piece called Ontology and Social Construction, she also claims that that what we see most of the time is a social construct. Ontology is different. The reality, real is different. And what we see, everything is made up, almost hallucinatory. So she talks about. So I see in that chapter, I bring Spivak, Shen, Sally Haslanger together, because also Fanon. I think all of you know Fanon. You know the pain of the abandoned neurotic. The pain of the abandoned neurotic that you encounter in Morrison's Beloved, or to a certain extent in Jhuppa Lahiri's Namesake, The Way Gogol Suffers, could also be found in this specific book, in Sea of Poppies. So in terms of pain, there is this connection, and I think all of you know, but this is, I love to talk about this character, Babu Nir Ratan Haldar, and while I was writing that book, I used to mutter his name all the time, and my daughters are telling me, who is Babu Nir Ratan Haldar? Why were muttering his name all the time? I say, I'm so shocked that I have to utter his name, mutter his name, because I lost my sleep. I mean, how can that happen? So this is the story of Babu Nir Ratan Haldar. His crime was to sign his name in English. His crime was that he knew English that well. And so his predecessor, as the book tells us, got the signature through some underling. But Babu Nir Ratan Haldar, being such a skilled person in calligraphy and having that additional aesthetic sense, didn't want anybody else to sign and wanted to sign the name, because obviously we're talking about the colonial India when Mr. Barnaham captivated or captured his estate and exploiting him when he's so innocent, such an innocent victim, that he's signing everything to him. But just the simple gesture of signing in English, created such a chaos. I mean, it's so painful to see the way Babu Nir Ratan Haldar has been transported from Lal Bazar to Alipur jail to Mauritius. Until I read that book, I never knew that. I knew the Indians were indentured laborers to Caribbean, but I did not know they were sent to Mauritius. I said, really? Yes, and I saw that Ghosh's research. It's based on real evidence. So it is true that happened. So this is where the diaspora comes. Diaspora construct that they were. Babu Nir Ratan was transported. The elite upper class Indian is transported along with all the coolies and the pseudo convicts. So that's where the diaspora happens. And in terms of pain, Babu Nir Ratan's pain is no less than the pain of Sete, the way the slave owners tortured the blacks. And also in this context, I would like to mention Sri Aurobindo's name. And Sri Aurobindo, while I was reading Amitabh Ghosh's Sea of Poppies, then I quoted a few lines from Aurobindo Ghosh's Tales of Prison Life, when he slept on the 2 blankets, and sometimes to use toilet water as the drinking water. A similar kind of torture, I think, Babu Nir Ratan had gone through. He had to even take care of the cellmate Afon. And whereas Mr. Burnham is running the opium trade from India to China, and Justice Kendall Bush is